You're on air with Regime Gaming. Our values are honor, valor, sacrifice, and esprit de corps with gaming, because loot. And today, we are breaking out the Cobra Lash Shadow for some more story in Path of Exile. Now, strangely enough, loading screens being a thing, it's been a while since we played this and actually focused on the storyline, so I will have to go through and talk to each of these people in town and see what happens. Okay, so I've got the Thaumatic Self, or the Infernal Talc. I am remembering where I am in this game now. It's a weak dagger. Very weak dagger. So the first thing I'm going to do here is change out my dagger so that my dagger looks a little bit prettier. Because my base damage is trash. And in order for me to do this, I'm going to take this... Take Blacksmith's Whetstone to it. Yeah. And take this Orb of Fusing to it. Perfect. Cobra Lash. Lesser Poison support. Volley support. Let's go ahead and put this poor man's dagger away. At least some of it. Alright. Take that and swap with that. Just giving myself a little bit more room to work with. Because inventory management is half the game in Path of Exile. You never know when you're going to run into something really rare and really nice. So here we are.
You looking sharp?
Greetings. Citizens of the Sun that was. The Undying have been around for hundreds of years. Left to their own devices, they'll likely survive for hundreds more. Still, they're not immune to mortality's touch. They can be killed, with some difficulty. Traversing the sewers under the river. I should have thought of that myself. Yet, the more of a picture you paint of that undying concoction in the sewers, the less I want to see it. If you manage to destroy it, expect a storm of undeath to descend upon you. The dark is their home, and there'd be nowhere more homely to the Undying than a pitch-swathed drain under a river.
Hello. Maramoa. I've heard that the Karui have this philosophy, Makanui, the way of the warrior. I don't think you could get any more Makanui than her. She took it upon herself to look after me before Tolman arrived. Saved my skin more than once. I'm fine with that. Beats being on her bad side. Hagen likes to think he was my kind old uncle back in Theopolis. Granted, the work he gave me saved my parents and I from starvation. This was after my father lost the family fortune at the card table, and we had to give up the manor in the country for a flea box in Theopolis. But he's not half as generous as he makes out. When Hagen gives you something, you can be damned sure that he's getting his pound of flesh in return. No one should have to go through what Grigor has. I help him as much as he'll let me, but he's a proud one, and so he should be. He's survived what has destroyed too many of us. Halfway across the world, and yet the tie between Vanilla and I endures. That was Piety's real name back in Theopolis, before her rise to greatness. Vanilla sold her thaumaturgy in the day, her body at night. Sought after, she was, enough so to become one of my best buyers. But money never meant much to Vanilla. No, she was striving for something better, nobler. Used to tell me that life needn't be this hard. It's time you all realized that. I bet she fed Tolman the same bloody line. The blackguards talked about Piety's precious gems being infected with nightmare. Tolman, what did she do to you? Vanilla was arrested for consorting with the unholy and condemned to the pyre. This was before the banishments. Dominus shared a last supper with her, at her confession. Most think Vanilla earned Dominus's patronage on her back. I don't. Vanilla gave Dominus her better life and got a new name in return. You can count on one thing. Piety's grand future won't include the likes of you, me, or Tolman. You find a high enough spot and you can see the Lunaris temple over the river, at the western edge of the city. Since the blackguards arrived, the clouds above that temple have been stained with the blackest of smoke. You can see it sometimes when the westerly blows. It stinks worse than death. On the fall of the Empire, the historians are deathly silent. After the Purity Rebellion, the Kingdom of Kaon blockaded Oriath, preventing any trade or correspondence with the mainland. It's said that Kaon planned to invade. Only when the Karui retreated did Oriath get any news from Rayclast, but by that time there wasn't really anyone left to tell the tale. I know. So strange that stone and metal should move and live as you and I. Still, I read that Chitis's sculptors used to soften their materials with thaumatic sulfite, a byproduct of gem refining. It's the only connection that I can fathom between the cataclysm and the living sculptures of Sarn. Chitis thought that the gemling was the pinnacle of human progress. These glorious gems have brought us within spitting distance of godhood, he once said. The High Templar at the time, Vol of Febris, thought they were a perversion. He wanted the Empire made pure, cleansed of the stain of thaumaturgy. You look at Sarn and tell me which one you think was right. And while you're out there, look out for monkeys. No, not those bloody monkeys from Frisia. These ones are painted on the walls. I think you'll find them enlightening.
Interesting.
Yes, I've had better.
Let's go ahead and go then. So this takes me into the sewers.
I'm inside the blackguard stronghold, like a fox in a hen house.
This guy in his commentary. Oh yes. That's pretty lovely right there. Go ahead.
You're not the only one who wields death as a weapon.
I killed you back in Ariath, I'd have been showered in gold. Where's the justice, eh?
That was the general, people. That was General Division. Now that we're here in a quote-unquote close enough to safe area, no, I'll be there shortly. Don't judge. Now that we're here, let's take a look at that passive tree, see what it's got for me. Alright. Increase physical damage, increase the damage over time. There we go. The ability to leech life with daggers. Go ahead and do that. So every attack I do with a dagger now will leech some kind of life. You know, statues, rocks, just everything's coming at me right now. Totally fine. Totally fine. I'm used to it. And I'm gonna run back to the Sarn encampment to ensure that I get old girl's reward for killing me, the general.
You are the true spirit of the Makoru, the shark. Not the cowardly beast that sinks its teeth into the lonely swimmer. You strike the Waikoama, the canoe, spilling a feast of men into the water. Hunters turned hunted, that you dine on at your pleasure. Have this.
This is actually a really nice deal. But I'm gonna have to go with Pestilent Strike, because that's just gangster. 60% chance to poison on hit, 50% of physical damage converted to chaos damage. Just why wouldn't you use it?
What is it? There's still prey out there. An overreaching witch floundering out of her depth. Happy hunting, Makoru.
Come over here. You've done for Gravicius. If only I could get word to that lad I smuggled away from the General's wife at the time. The good widow would need a sympathetic shoulder to cry on.
Yep. That's that dude.
Hello. Gravicius dined with us once. This was before my father's gambling debts caught up with him. I dined with him again in Theopolis prison the night before my exile. He wasn't so polite that time. Thank you. That's one memory I can now put to rest.
Despite everything else you've done, to let piety live is to threaten the existence of every living thing on this continent. Look to the west of Gravicius's camp. You'll find piety in the Lunaris temple, cowering behind her desecrations. The Eternals revered sun and moon as the two eyes of their god. The right eye judging Solaris, the left eye merciful Lunaris. I can't imagine that god being overly merciful when she finds out what piety's been doing in her temple.
Well. I'm gonna go to the Imperial Gardens first. Come back out, activate the waypoint in... I don't want to fight that thing. It's like a frog. Another one? It's a good thing I've got that thing called, evasion. Otherwise, I've been taking like 15 L's. into the library because loot. Also, knowledge. Calissa Mass. I never really understood Brektov's work, just the massive trills and squeaky highs to my commoner ears. But that was before Calissa Mass. From the very first note, her voice reached into my chest and plucked my beating heart from its cage. By the wide, glistening eyes of my fellow punters, I knew that they felt it too. I previously stolen a quick nap during the aria that precedes Antonio's disemboweling. Not tonight. The gem at Calissa's throat sparkled with starlight brilliance as her C-sharp shattered every pane of glass in the auditorium. An emergency intermission was called, while the stage crew repaired the floods and cans, and a pair of physicians saw to those audience members lacerated by falling splinters. Now, my suspicion of the virtue gems is well documented. The general and courtier might fall over each other to have Malachi embed them with these miraculous crystals. To the travesty of justice, that the legionnaires and workers of this empire should have such mutilations foisted upon them. Yet, in Calissa Mass, I've seen how these gems may rend apart our mortal bonds, and permit our imaginations and souls to truly shine. I am adrift in the quandary, no ore in sight. Is Calissa the artist or the art? Is she the same woman I knew before? The young bundle of talent and timidity I had no choice but to adore? Is she still, in fact, a woman at all? Now, if you remember, Calissa's gem is also the gem that was used to turn Merveil into Merveil. So, just a connection in history here. Yeah, they're on the other side. Good. The Purity Chronicles. In a man-to-man fight on open ground, a Gemlin legion would have slaughtered Kaom's Karui warriors like so many pigs in a pen. But Kaom had no intention of engaging Lion Eye in a fair fight. By absorbing their heavy losses and feigning a chaotic retreat, Kaom drew Marseilles into ordering his Gemlings to abandon their tower shields so that they might pursue and rout the fleeing Karui. It was not out of recklessness that Lion Eye plucked such a decision, but from the experience-born confidence that the Karui did not have archers. Traditionally, Karui warriors are forbidden from using projectile weapons of any kind. What Lion Eye understandably overlooked was that this Tavukai, the sacred prohibition, did not extend to women. At her uncle's behest, Hiri had traveled to Thebras and studied archery with Vol's finest military tutors. When the Legionnaires shed protection in favor of mobility, Hiri and her bowwomen broke cover and rained death upon the Gemlings from the cliffs above. A valiant Marseilles Lion Eye gathered his surviving Legionnaires for a final stand within the walls of Lion Eye's watch. Kaom honored his bravery by wearing Marseilles' bejeweled head upon his belt from that day on. Having secured a safe harbor for landing reinforcements, Kaom continued his conquest of the coast, slaughtering the eternal citizens and clearing the way for the first ever settlement of Karui upon the Ray-class mainland. Huh. You didn't think they had archers. Oh, he's a little giant. I'm not sticking around for him to hit me. That would be insane. I'm familiar with where I am now. Waypoint. What does this dagger do? So a total of 62% increased critical strike chance. It's not. Yeah. It's kind of trash. I mean, great if I was using a spell-based character, but kind of trash.
In more mundane circumstances, it would be preposterous to ask this of you, an utter stranger, but given that I don't know in which century I might see another pair of flesh and bone hands, there's a door, you see, concealed behind the shelves. It leads into the archives. That's where Isius Perandus concealed his golden pages. Can you see how maddening that would be for me? No, of course you can't. Ridiculous of me to... Suffice to say that they are beyond my reach. 4 Varlish texts they are, of priceless historical insight. Please, find my friend's golden pages and bring them to me. You will be rewarded. I vow it before the ancestors. Please, do not be alarmed. I am neither monster nor murderer, though that is the duality of existence that defines San these days. My name is Yosafuanga, and I have the bleak honor of being the sole scholar to the Imperious Intellection, this grand repository of knowledge you see about you. May reason preserve us. It is the Karui way to observe nature in nature. The fish without the sea is no longer a fish. It is dinner. The Eternals did not see it that way. An Eternal catches the fish, guts the fish, preserves the fish, and places it in a box. Only then does the Eternal feel he truly understands the fish.
Very interesting commentary on certain aspects of science here.
It was a Karui Motiata that discarded my failing body of flesh in favor of canvas and oil. An ancient song and a momentary lapse in judgment that I've had more than enough time to regret.
So what we will do here is we will continue on and take care of the enemies as they come. There's some definite beauty in bringing, poison. Interesting. The Ancients, raising the Asmeri. Drink a cup of Asmerian tea, and then try to read your future in the leaves. You'll find that your Volish might come in mighty handy. Our literature was conceived and born within the Asmeri's cultural marriage with the Vol. Prior to the Vol contact, some 2,500 years ago, the Asmerian culture had a purely oral tradition of story and record-keeping. Afterwards, their literary culture blossomed, along with just about every other aspect of their fledgling civilization. From the moment the first Volish ambassadors set foot upon the rugged slopes of the Asmerian ranges, the Vol civilization held the hand of the Asmeri as they grew from a primitive tribal existence to a cohesive culture of settlement and agriculture. Yet while the Vol was generous with their knowledge and guidance in many areas, there was one subject upon which they were notably silent: the tears of Magi, now known as the Virtue Gems. Despite an exhaustive search, neither account nor passing reference can be found regarding use among the early Asmeri. And though they describe the Vol of having flesh adorned with glittering crystals, our Asmerian ancestors were never privy to the gem's potentials or powers. At least not until the first Vol refugees came knocking 500 years later. There is a price to power, people. Let's see what this knife does. Doesn't look special. Chaos damage over time multiplier. Increased critical strike chance. But overall trash. Okay, the candle. Okay. see what the Sun Loader does. Trash. Trash by comparison. I can also go down this way so I can access chaos resistance as well as increase chaos damage, because that changes the way that we deal with things in this game. Oh, went to the wrong door. That was a boss. Well, mid-boss, but you know. Well, rear enemy, rather. It was an attempt at a boss, okay? People underestimate the strength of poison. Now that we've got all 4 golden pages, we'll go ahead and take a look at what they say. The Vaal were even more steeped in gem culture than our emperor and his gemlings. It's an obsession as old as civilization itself. Siosir slavery will cause them to overlook you. Your Karui way will guide you. Your humanity will shame us all. A waking nightmare. Madness of the mind or madness of the flesh? Communion, but with what? By all accounts, it wasn't God that the Vaal were trying to reach. Very interesting. Continue.
By the ancestors, it's good to see fresh words in front of me. Now, my translation skills are not what Isius were. I can achieve a meager paraphrase at best. But a little knowledge is better than none, is it not? Let us begin. This tapestry of truth is a threadbare cloth indeed. But at least you have allowed me to begin the first few stitches in its restoration, and to settle the memory of a dear friend. In return, allow me to give you this, a little practical wisdom to improve your lot.
Now we got some choices to make. Lightning penetration, cold penetration, ice bite, innervate. Okay, so I've got poison support, and poison support is the thing I want. Take that. Let's see what he has to say.
My word. Vaalish contextualized syntax is a slippery eel indeed. Let me see if I can grab it by the gills. They carried their virtue gems to Doriani's bed. No, that's not quite right. Ah, yes. Doriani's cradle. The historian finishes that it was a price they needed to pay to ensure a Vaalish future. A cradle of virtue gems? What sort of Vaalish future did Doriani hope to ensure? Splendid. Let's see what this page has to offer us. It talks of Queen Atsiri. Now, here's a portentous line. She drenches her altars with the blood of those deranged enough to question her vision. The next piece is a real eye-crosser, but I believe it refers to a communion. Something to do with the harvest moon? Again, Doriani seems at the heart of it. Good. This line I can read without issue. This will be our final night of fear, our final night of suffering. Sacrifice, communion, the harvest moon. An unsettling combination. Oh my. This first line is frighteningly clear. Our queen is dead. Doriani is dead. So many have fallen, so many have changed. The latter text is almost indecipherable. It practically hums with agitation. Let me see. I can make out the words sleep, nightmare, and the beast. Whatever that may be. Our historian finishes with, "We have succeeded where our forebears did not. We have failed ourselves." I need not imagine the fall of the Val. I saw the nightmare with my own eyes. Strange. I was put in charge of dating the most antiquated of texts. This parchment, it's a remarkable copy, but it's no original. Much younger. Oh my. Listen to this. My dearest Isius, I have been enlightened beyond expectation. Your work in translating these artifacts is worthy of the highest recompense, and thus I am delighted to offer you a position in my personal laboratory. Please do not give your escorts any consternation. I would be most pained to see such a precious asset damaged in any way. I very much look forward to working with you. Isius Perandus. Your friend and admirer, Malachi. Poor, poor Isius. Wherever you went, my pity goes with you. I suppose every civilization has its Doriani, its Malachi, men of divine talent and demented ambition. Without them, history would be a far less interesting place. How Malachi survived the Purity Rebellion, I don't know. He was at Emperor Vol's side before Chich's corpse was even cold. I suppose Vol found him as difficult to refuse as Isius did. Malachi would never have risen so far without the patronage of an emperor like Chichis. It would appear that Doriani and Queen Atsiri shared a similar relationship. It was said of the beautiful Atsiri that she wished to see her likeness reflected in the still waters of history. Chichis was no less self-impressed. Of all the sins, vanity is the most hideous. Sun fell in the course of an hour, no more. A tempest raged down from the mountains and engulfed the city, throwing it into midday darkness. I saw madness in my colleagues' eyes, watched as the most rational men in the Empire jabbered and slavered and slaughtered each other. I witnessed Trinia, now gemling Intellectus Prime, engulfed by the radiance of his flaming cranial gem, and wither like a grape in the sun into a thing of desiccation and famishment. I've seen mountains spew fire in Ngamakanui. I've seen waves as tall as trees and winds that leveled warriors and walls alike. Nature is what nature is. There was nothing natural about the cataclysm.
And this is why I love the story of this game, people. There's some hidden depth here, even a little bit of commentary on history. But you've been on air with Regime Gaming. Our values are honor, valor, sacrifice, and esprit de corps with gaming, because loot. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.